So today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint a watercolor bookmark, and it is going to be a spring landscape. So we're going to start by first adding in some bright pink flowers to the bottom of our bookmark. So I mixed up some Alzarian crimson with just a little bit of my Chinese white, just to kind of give it more of a dull, soft look. And we are just going to start painting in tiny little loose circles for our flowers. These are going to kind of give the appearance of roses, but they're going to be very loosely put down. We're not going to add an incredible amount of detail to them. So as your flowers get higher up your bookmark, you want them to be you want them to be smaller, which is going to give the appearance of them being farther away. So just randomly place in those flowers. I really want to load up the bottom of this bookmark with a lot of flowers. And then off in the distance, they can even just become little, just like little specks. All right, and we're going to leave it just like that and just clean your brush off all the way. And now we're going to mix up a dark green paint mixture. So I'm just taking some of this sap green and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of blue and a little bit of black that I already have over here in my palette. So we're going to get a nice dark green. And I'm just going to start, even while the roses are still wet, just start doing some quick lines to create the stems and the grass underneath these flowers. And again, we're going for pretty loose with our bookmark. We're not going to take an incredible amount of time with it, so just go very quickly with adding in these lines. And then we're going to even more so soften up all this green that we're putting in. So now while that green is still wet, we are just going to clean our brush off and we are going to take the lightest mixture of that green. So our brush is just going to be barely damp and have a little bit of that green still on it. And we're just going to come in and start blending out those lines. So you don't want the lines to disappear, but you want them to kind of give a nice shadowing around the roses. And it's okay if the green touches the pink paint. We're going to add more detail to our roses in a little bit. So just going to have fun blending out this green paint and creating a nice, soft, grassy field underneath these really pretty green, pink flowers. I'm going to create that green color, a nice horizon line back here, and then I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm just going to drop in a couple more of those flowers. And then my goal was not to have it bleed into the green, so I'm just going to clean that up real quick. And And just go back to blending in between everything. All right, so there we have our field. And again, we're not going to be finished with this area, but we're going to let this dry and we can move on to the top. So up here, I'm going to switch to my size 12 Princeton snap brush. I'm going to fill it up with some clean water. And I'm going to cover the entire sky area of my painting. And do my best for it not to touch where the green section ends. So you want the wet area up here to be separate from that bottom section. And with a lot of water on that round brush, not like it's not going to be dripping, but it is definitely full of water. I'm going to fill it up with that pink paint, and we're just going to bring that right into our sky. And we're going to have a nice pink sunset to go with our pretty pink flowers. And it's just going to go right to the grass. And if you're worried that you did get a little bit of water right where that grass ended, just try to leave a little bit of white space so that it doesn't start bleeding into your grass. So I'm grabbing a little bit more pink on my brush. I just feel like that's a little too light. I'm just going to come back in with that color. And I'm not even going to go all over. I'm going to kind of give it more of a hazy, uneven sky feel. I really like how that looks. All right, and then we are going to let this completely dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add a little bit more detail to our foreground. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add some trees to the back of our horizon line, and then we're going to continue to add detail to this foreground. So I'm going to go back to my size 6 round brush, and I'm going to go back to that dark green paint that we started with. I'm going to add that little black to it, just get it really dark. And then we are just going to go in and just tapping randomly with the tip of our brush, tapping in some trees off in the background. And the best thing to do when you paint in trees like this, try to just make them as random as possible. Try not to have a pattern, and that'll make it look way more realistic than kind of having a pattern and having them all the same height, the same shape. It's really hard to be random, but if you can achieve it, it will help your painting a lot. And it does just take practice to get it to have that random feel. So just try not to think too much, try to just relax and enjoy tapping in some pretty green paint. By the way, I will have all of the specific paint colors that I used for this tutorial over on my blog, as well as all the supplies that I used for this video. And you can find the link to my blog in the description below. Just head over there and you can get all of the supply list for free and all of the paint colors that I used for free. So there we have our row of evergreen trees, so we can rinse off our brush. And now we are going to go back into our pink paint, and I'm just going to add a little bit more of that Alzarian crimson over to it, a little bit more of that Chinese white. And real quick, I'm just going to drop some back here just because I feel like I needed a little bit more flowers off in the back all the way up to the trees. And the nice part about making that first layer of grass so light, it gives you that flexibility that you can still go back and add some more of that pink without it just not even showing up on the page. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit more alizarin crimson to that mixture. And now I'm just going to start kind of putting in some curvy line motions into my flowers. And this is just to kind of give it a little bit more, a little bit more detail, and just to kind of redefine them. And the farther we go back, the less amount of lines that are going to show. So just kind of, again, with this, just have fun with it and enjoy putting the paint on the page. It's a nice thing about painting loosely with watercolors. It takes away a lot of the pressure. You can just kind of have fun putting paint down and just giving it that impression of a shape, and it still looks really good. So I'm putting very light amount of pressure as I use the tip of my brush to create these brush strokes. You can even come off the flower a little bit, go right into the green, and again, everything's dry, so nothing's gonna bleed. And I'll just kind of extend the flower a little bit. Let me know in the comments what your favorite flower is to paint in a landscape. I definitely want to do more tutorials like this. I love the look of a field full of flowers. So let me know if that's something you'd like to see more of on this channel. All right, so now as we're going farther away and our flowers are a lot smaller, you're just going to notice you're not going to be able to see a lot of the lines as much, and you're not going to be able to fit as many on. So it's okay just to kind of tap just a little bit of extra color onto each little blob of pink. Because in reality, we wouldn't be able to see all the details of something farther away anyway. So you can just kind of create that right there. And then I am going to add another flower, I think closer in the foreground. I feel like I need another one like right here. Just add that, and then I'm going to go right into my alizarin crimson, so it's going to be pretty deep. Just going to fill that in like that. Just kind of bring it right in the foreground. It to this one as well, just to kind of tie in with how vibrant that first one's going to be. I'm going to clean my brush off, and then with a very, very lightly damp brush, I'm just going to smooth out some of those lines, just so it still kind of matches everything that's going on. All right, now we can move back to adding some more defined grass blades. So we're going to go back to that same green paint mixture. So we're really only using 2 colors for this entire painting, which is a great thing to do for a beginner tutorial. You're not having to mess around with too many colors. You can just focus on 2 and create such a nice looking landscape. All right, so now I'm just going to add more of those grass blades, and this time we're going to leave them nice and sharp. And as they get farther away, they should get shorter. Just kind of bring them coming off the page, going up into the flowers. So here I'm going to use the very tip of my brush just to tap in a little bit of grass blades to give that detail back there with all the other little roses. Make it darker right here. Just want it to be darker, closer, and then just kind of work its way a little bit lighter toward the back. I'm going to take some darker Alzerian crimson on my brush. I'm just going to come right here where that green is really, I can tell it's really in this rose. Same thing here. And then right up in the foreground, just going to add some leaf shapes. Just kind of flicking them on there. All right, we are going to let this dry, and then I think I'm going to grab my white gel pen and we're going to add some final details to our roses. So everything has dried, and I grabbed my white gel pen, and I'm just going to add a little bit extra detail to these flowers that I added at the very end. So they're already on top of that green, and I feel like they just needed to be brightened up a little bit. And I'm just going to do the same thing we did with that second layer of paint. I'm just going to create little circular lines just to kind of, again, brighten up these flowers. I'm going to add just a little bit to these, but not too much because they're already very bright. And then maybe just a little bit back here. Anywhere where you feel like the green just kind of took over a little bit. I'm going to take my brush, just a little bit damp. It's going to blend that white gel pen out. So before it dried, I'm able to kind of maneuver that ink around just a little bit with the water and just kind of take away that harshness. And then I'm going to mess with it just a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more of that Alzerian crimson, my brush. Kind of come in right behind it. Just kind of tap in that color. All right, and there you have an easy watercolor bookmark with a beautiful spring landscape on top.